I was driving over here and I was thinking about how it's very weird that you and I have known each other for like a decade
Yeah.
and have never like sat down one-on-one to talk.
Is that true?
Not like this, like
Yeah,
at
that's
like a
true.
like at a like a thing at like a function.
Not wired up under a tree.
Right. It's July 23rd, 2021, and I'm sitting in the grass with Crystal Paradis, a local organizer and activist and current Somersworth City Councilor. In a couple of days, she will formally kick off her campaign for mayor. I wanted to talk to you about your mayoral campaign,
Yes.
which we're now both wearing buttons for.
Yep.
And I
The
wanted
first
to,
two button wearers.
and right now we're talking in July.
Yeah, I guess it is July.
And my thought was that I would talk to you in July, and then I would talk to you in a couple of months, and then I would talk to you after the election, and it would all be one episode.
I love that. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a double-sided coin because it's like on the one hand, it's like, oh, I wanted to come out earlier so everyone would vote for me. But on the other hand, it's like, I can say whatever I want now and it won't affect the voters. So
There you
it's
go.
very liberating.
It's like The Last
You'll get all the
Dance.
secrets, and then depending on how it goes, people are either going to be like, oh my gosh, who did we elect? Or like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I stand by my decision.
Welcome to The Last Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Little. Today on the show, the Crystal Paradis Mayoral campaign. The beginning, the middle, and the end. So it was kind of a shocking thing to know someone who was running for mayor. That was my first thought when I heard about Crystal's campaign. Of course, I made it about me. Oh wow, I am old now. People I know are running for mayor, not mayor of student council, but actual mayor of an actual city with a population of 11,900 people. But it was a shock of recognition. It didn't feel wrong that I knew someone who was running for mayor, and it especially didn't feel wrong that it was Crystal who was doing it. It felt exactly right. I met Crystal when I had first moved to Portsmouth, and my father-in-law started taking me to lots of networking events in town. At the time, Crystal worked in marketing, but later left that gig and started working for the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign. She relocated to Somersworth amid the fallout from, everything that happened there, and quickly fell in love with that community, which, by the way, is very diverse, very inclusive, and very young, demographically speaking. There's a lot of future potential packed into the 10 square miles that makes up the city of Somersworth, which figures pretty heavily into Crystal's decision to run in the first place.
I felt like because I had seen gentrification and displacement happen in Portsmouth so quickly, and like some people sort of getting up in arms and showing up to the city council meetings that I was also attending very frequently as well. It just didn't happen soon enough. People didn't have the vision of like, oh, this is coming. It wasn't until a lot of those big new buildings, some of the first big new surprising, startling buildings went up that people were like, oh no, what's happening? And at that point, that was like, oh, that one was approved like 7 years ago under like 2 councils ago, like by that time, the development that was in process already, just people hadn't been paying attention. So when I ran for city council a couple of years ago here, it was very much, like to look at it and to see the potential and to be like, look, I've seen it happen in Portsmouth. It's clearly happening in Dover. Some of it's even skipping over us and going to Rochester, but like we're nestled in this strategic location where we're like right on the main border. There's amazing things happening in Berwick right now. There's this old tannery that's like been sort of demolished, and they're revisioning like as a community what to do with their entire downtown. It's like this really cool, you almost never get this opportunity to like basically plan a whole downtown all at once, and they're doing that right across the bridge. I mean, you can see it from a couple blocks from here. So we're in this spot that like if we do it well and we make sure that like the gentrification and displacement doesn't happen really, really quickly, this could be like that next big cool city.
You've been to the other side.
Yeah.
So you're like,
and seen the good and the bad.
Right. So when you ran for city council
Mm-hmm.
and you won, was that the first time you'd run for office?
Yes.
So you're batting 1,000.
Yeah.
And
I've won every race I've ever run.
Did you think, when you first started getting involved in politics, did you see yourself as someone who's going to run for office, or did you see
No.
yourself as a behind-the-scenes kind of person?
I mean, I never even saw myself as somebody who was involved until it just sort of accidentally happened. I mean, when I really started getting interested in policy was I was working in Hawaii at Hawaii Primary Care Association doing like advocacy work for community health centers. And like, I grew up a poor kid and we didn't go to the doctor all the time because we didn't have health care. And I was like reading our own materials there in the office, like, oh, there's actually this thing called a community health center that you can just go to regardless of your ability to pay. Like, you could just go see a doctor. Totally blew my mind. I grew up in a pretty conservative household, so just had this, I think I had sort of drifted from that conservative mindset, but hadn't yet questioned the distrust of government. And so to see suddenly like what a safety net is and how government could be good. And I remember like questioning my boss when she was like, oh, we're going to fax this testimony in to support this bill for funding community health centers to the State House. And I was like, first of all, fax, come on, who does that? And second of all, they don't care, right? They're a bunch of politicians. Like, do you really think you're going to make a difference by like sending this one letter? And she was like, actually, yes, because like so few people write in, they really take it seriously. And even if the people we're writing to already agree with us, if we don't write in a comment that they can hold up on the floor and say, look, my constituents agree with me, they're out there advocating for us with no backup. So we have to like send this in. And it just like opened up my eyes to like, oh, you can actually send in letters, like the whole write and call your legislator thing. It works and it's an effective, like that's why it's a call to action, but it was very outside of my awareness. So that sort of got me involved in just advocacy because I would get fired up about a particular issue and just be active on it. But even when I was working in the 2016 campaign, that was a really hardcore organizing job. Like, you don't eat much, you don't sleep much. It's just all about getting volunteers active and engaged in the community and like supporting your candidate. It really wasn't until the 2018 midterms where I saw a lot of the more local wins. AOC was one of them, a big one that year, but also like Danica Rome in Pennsylvania, who was running for the state legislature on like local infrastructure stuff. It suddenly got me really excited at the local level because like Donald Trump was in office at that point. It was kind of like, okay, this whole partisan upper level stuff is still not something I can really handle thinking about all the time. But the local government stuff felt really empowering to me. And it was like, oh, like I was looking at the city council and how they were talking about things. And I was like, actually think I have something to add to that conversation, and was part of this groundswell of like new young people moving in. So yeah, it just felt like, why not? I keep telling people and encouraging other people to run. It finally got to the point where it was like, well, I guess I have to do it.
In Leadership Seacoast, they do this activity, right, that really like profoundly affected me as much as like a group activity possibly could, which is like, you do this thing where everybody sits and you have your eyes closed. And they basically say like, when you get tapped on the head, stand up, right? And then they don't do anything. So you just sit there with your eyes closed. And some of the people in the room go, oh, I have to tap this person on the head. Like, I just have to do it. Like, I have to start this. And it happens pretty fast in that room, you know? And I remember it did not occur to me, right? Somebody tapped me on the head and I looked around and I was like, oh, I get what's happening. Like, it's a little bit scary, I think, when you realize that in order to make a difference, in order for things to get better, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, people will say like, oh, like good for you for stepping up. I could never do it, all this stuff. And it's almost like that doesn't compute to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Literally anyone can do it because I can do it. And I certainly don't have like the regular background a politician has. I don't look like one. I don't sound like one. Like, so literally anyone can do it. But then to realize that for some people, it either would never occur to them or it's just like so strongly not something that they want to do. It's like, okay, well, I guess I am different because like, yeah, it was uncomfortable and it was like weird and like imposter syndrome abounds, etc. But like, I still feel like I'm as capable as those guys, and they are almost all guys. I doubled the representation of women on our council when I got elected. There's 2 of us now.
As a city councilor, Crystal has definitely drawn some comparisons to Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation, which I think is fun and also a little limiting just because that show's progressive politics were pretty lukewarm most of the time, but it does warrant mentioning that the opening of a dog park numbers among Crystal's recent accomplishments in that office. Anyway.
These campaigns, right? Hillary Clinton, presidential campaign, city council campaign.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest lesson from each one?
So, the Hillary Clinton campaign, I think the biggest motivator for me both in that campaign and the biggest relief, the only relief I had after that, is at least I know I did literally everything I can do. Like, I sacrificed my physical and mental health. I did everything I could do. And it was coming out of leaving a job where I felt extremely disconnected from a values point of view. This marketing job that I had that was also doing a lot of work for this gun company, and it was a very dramatic turning point in my life when I just quit that job. So to go from like that to, oh my gosh, like I can work for something that's totally aligned with my values was amazing. And like obviously it's not always going to be a candidate. I know there are some people who are like, fine, I voted for her but I didn't support her in the primary or whatever. I love Hillary Clinton. I love her. I'm so inspired by her as a human, her as a candidate. Like I was all in for her. Like there were people on that campaign who were like, I'm here because I want to defeat Trump, or I'm here because like I think she has the best chance or whatever. I loved her. Like I was fully all in. So it was I think a really big, I don't know if it's a lesson or what, but like it was a demonstration that like you can go all in on your values and it's not as scary as you think. And like I think for that level of a campaign, especially when you're knocking on doors in maybe red areas or perceived to be red areas, and you're saying, I'm here to support, and then you say the name of somebody that might make that person very angry because everybody has an opinion about her, was scary, and yet I never encountered anything that was as bad as what I imagined. So there was a lot of, I think, bravery and courage built on that campaign, as well as, like, it was almost like the exercising of a muscle of, like, I can do something I fully align with 100% of my time. And actually get paid for it. Not very much, but like I could survive, you know? I think for city council, a lesson I learned was sort of going off of what I said before about like just doing it. just doing it and just showing up and just being clear about your values, even if it's like, you know, I can't answer every single policy about like whether our enrollment is going up or down at this elementary school versus this elementary school, or like different policy questions that would come up. I knew this is why I care about the community. These are the skills that I have with connecting to people and engaging the community and, you know, integrity and collaboration and all these things that I think I could bring to the council that I see an opportunity for. That really resonated with people in a way that, I mean, I won with the most votes. I beat all the incumbents, and I was worried that I would even win at all because, you know, I was relatively new to the community and all these people had been doing this for years. And it was like, wow, you show up and you bring enthusiasm and you show that you're committed to do some real work, and people are going to get inspired and activated by that.
Before we move on too far from the Hillary Clinton campaign, let's do like, what was the most like surreal moment of that?
Madeleine Albright tweeting a sign that I had made, which was Leslie Knope's Wall of Amazing Women, for a Halloween costume I'd had the year before that I had brought into the campaign office.
Wow.
I was like, Madeleine Albright just tweeted a picture of this like silly project that I made, which was literally Leslie Knope's Wall of Amazing Women that she was on.
Right.
This is why she tweeted, you know,
Right,
she just
right.
saw this like...
There
was a lot of surreal moments just with like high profile people like that I got to meet. But I mean, it always goes back to the people, like the people that I met. I mean, it sounds so trite, but like the people I met on the campaign, Exeter was where I organized, and like there are people that it's like going to war with people. in a way, I guess it kind of is, but it's like, those are the people that literally would be like, you haven't eaten, here's a sandwich, or like, are you doing okay, or do you need to go out back and cry for a little while and then come back in, or whatever. There were people who, you know, their kids were in the military and they were concerned about what Donald Trump would do literally to their children's lives if he got elected. There were people who couldn't afford their health care. I mean, there are all these stories that like you hear sort of brought up on the campaign trail were like actual people that were like in my office volunteering all the time, and like, so like not a surreal moment, but like that's just like a deep and lasting experience. As a woman candidate running, I would be the first woman mayor in Somersworth. Not to compare myself to Hillary Clinton, who would have been our first female president, but I mean, I got to see a lot of the misogyny and hear it on the phone. Literally, I think I don't think this is even exaggeration. Certainly it was during my first shift phone banking. It might even have been my first phone call phone banking for Hillary. Literally the person on the other end of the phone was like, she needs to do something about her hair. I don't like her new haircut. And I was like, are you serious? Like, are you a real human saying this thing that is like a stereotypical misogynist thing to say? Like, this has nothing to do with the substance of this person.
It's really hard to believe when you get up that close, when you have that stuff happen.
I
right?
thought
It's
it was like somebody like, you know, satiring.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. It actually, people say things like that. So I'm very aware. I certainly bring with it some apprehension of like, I sort of know the tropes of like, you know, I'm running against an incumbent. I could wait 2 years when this person says he's going to retire. And so I know a lot of people are going to be like, why are you running now? Why won't you wait a couple of years until this very powerful person is out of the way and it's an open seat? Like, I'm challenging a specific person in authority because I have different values and I think I bring a different vision. And so like, I know there's that sort of perception to deal with.
It's Dana, what's his last name? Hilliard?
Hilliard.
Dana Hilliard is the current mayor of Somersworth. He's running for one more term, is claiming that he's going to retire after that. He's not term limited though, like he doesn't have to.
No.
Now, this election it's not partisan.
Nope, it's a nonpartisan race. So
it's not like
as many
a
people could run as possible, and it's all. I mean, if there were 12 people running, there'd be 12 people on the ballot. There's no primary to like narrow the campaign or anything.
One reason that you have given, you know, for why you're running now is that you believe that this moment that Somersworth is in, this sort of like crossroads before gentrification or something else, is happening now, not 2 years from now. Like, it has to start now. When did you figure that out? Is there's some decisions that have to be made soon for the town, right? Like there's like a 5-year plan or
there's a
10-year
10-year master plan coming up next year. Yep.
Okay. And I understand the concept of a master plan in name, but like, what's a master plan?
So for the city, one of my friends used this analogy, and it may sound weird, but I kind of think it works. Because people, you know, when you talk about electing a president, some people really care about the Supreme Court, right? Because that's a person that might be appointed in the next term that's going to make decisions for generations. The 10-year master plan for the city is kind of like the city's Supreme Court. So if I'm running for a term that this next year is going to set the course for the next 10 years. So we're still sort of wrapping up stuff that was in the master plan. Actually, I think it was 11 years ago. We're a little bit overdue for it. Say I run for mayor, I help set this master plan, and I lose the next time. Still, whoever is in office, mayor and council, for the next 8 years is still going to have this document sort of guiding them. It's something that the city commits to, that's voted on, that says... So, for example, an arts commission is something that has come up earlier this year. Some people brought it before council and said, hey, let's have an arts commission. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like, everybody else has one. Why don't we have an arts commission already? That's kind of silly. And I did some digging into it, and there's just state grant money that would have been available earlier this month had we last month formed an arts commission. That's something that is within the mayor's power at any point in time at a stroke of a pen. You can form a commission, you can form a task force. It just puts on paper that there's a group of people in the community that care about X, Y, Z. Portsmouth's art commission came out of their master plan, however many years ago, 20, 30 years ago. It was put into their master plan. Oh, we care about the arts. We see that the creative community contributes to the economy and helps us with housing and all this stuff. We want to put together a commission to actually task them with this big major goal. So that came out of their master plan. So there's all sorts of things from just like improving infrastructure, roads and sidewalks. Instead of just sort of tweaking the budget year to year, you can put in a 10-year master plan that says we want to make sure that all of our sidewalks are up to code within the next 10 years, because that's a hard thing to do year to year, depending on what other things are impacting the tax rate that year, what your budget is, what the cash flow is, etc. So it's really, yeah, it's kind of like the Supreme Court decision that comes along once every 10 years.
How granular does it get? Is it like kind of just a bunch of value statements like that? Like, we want to make this happen? Or is it like buildings can only be this tall for the next 10 years?
A little more strategic, for sure. And again, it depends who you hire to help you as a consultant. It depends how big the vision is. I will say we had a goal setting session, which I expected to be a little bit more, I hear goal setting session and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is our chance to like bring forward our wish lists, right? Like they actually had all the counselors come up with 3 priorities that they wanted to contribute to this like session that we were talking about. And I had, roads and sidewalks was my number 1. Downtown revitalization and wayfinding was number 2. Can't remember off the top of my head what my third one was at this point, because the roads and sidewalks thing really, really came out as something that almost everybody had in there. And I was really disappointed in the current city leadership, so both the city manager and the mayor, that really how that conversation started shaping is, okay, here are the things that it sounds like people care about. What are the things we've done already that we can add to a list? It's like making a to-do list of stuff you already did today so that you could just check them off, It was very much like, oh, well, we have this in the works already, and we have, this complete streets project, and here's how much we already put into it 2 years ago, and then we also were putting more money into it this year, instead of really forward thinking. And one of the other counselors brought up what I thought was a great idea of like, let's actually do a comprehensive assessment of our sidewalks like we do with our road every year, so we can even have like a roadmap of where to go to start improving our sidewalks. And that's the type of thing that I feel like goes into a master plan or goes into a goal setting session. This is a thing that's like something we're not doing already that we know could improve the community, that is a tangible thing. But to your point of how granular, it's not like how much money are we putting into it. It's really, we want to make sure we have at least a plan in the next 10 years for how we're going to get this done. And we'll figure out if this is grant funded, if we're taking out a bond, if it's coming out of the budget, etc.
I know that the promise of a conversation about a master plan sounds like something out of a Bond movie, and that was definitely not what you just got, but I think Crystal's explanation really really helped me understand what a master plan is all about, and I hope it was helpful for you too.
One of the terms back there you used was wayfinding. Is that what it sounds like?
Yes. So wayfinding is like, the parking P's that like have an arrow, and it's like, oh, parking is this way. We have a lot of parking in our downtown, but it's right off the main drag. And so one very small example is like, can we please get a parking P at this particular corner where it branches off, and there's like hundreds of always empty parking spots right down here? Because we get tens of thousands of people that drive through Somersworth all the time, coming to and from the shipyard, to and from their jobs, schools, wherever. And not all of them stop in Somersworth on the way, because there's not a super amount of parking on the very main street, the parallel parking spots. So if those are full, you may get the impression driving through every day that there's nowhere to park here. And maybe I want to check out Teetotaler, but it doesn't look like there's a spot there. I'd have to pull a UE and whatever. Whereas, if there's one sign that says something this way. Another good example is if you go to Laconia, actually, I just drove through, and they have like certain corners where you have all the little sticks pointing various different ways. Library this way, City Hall this way, shops and restaurants this way. Or it can be as specific as those boards that have listed actual business names with 2 miles this way, 3 miles this way. So exit 9 is about 10 to 15 minutes away from downtown Somersworth, which is super annoying because there's quite a lot of stoplights. Some people never come further than Walmart or Target. If there were a board right as you come off exit 9 with the Welcome to Somersworth sign, and we've discussed this on various committee levels, that actually listed the Indonesian restaurants and Teetotaler Cafe and different shops and gravy restaurant and pizza places 2 miles this way, people would be like, Oh, I didn't even know there was a downtown that way. So it's
There we
really
go. Gravy restaurant?
gravy. Oh, it's so good.
is
I was
good.
there
I like it,
yesterday.
yeah.
I had a pulled pork sandwich. It was delicious.
I got something. I got like a Nashville hot chicken thing there that was not
Oh,
super hot.
I
but-
love. I've
but it
had
was
that
good
exact
anyway.
dish. It was perfect for me. I can't go too super hot, so it brought me right to the edge of my comfort zone.
I shouldn't. I shouldn't, but I'm getting older to the point where it's like I feel it, when I shouldn't do that. I'm exactly that kind of person, by the way, that wayfinding is like intended for. Because I am the kind of person who, if I'm driving somewhere, will unexpectedly stop to look around if I see an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like I will just pull into I surprise myself sometimes where I'm like, I'll just pull into a parking spot to go do something, and then I'm like, wait, I have to go to work.
What am I doing?
Like,
I'm commuting right now.
Well, hey, so I was just driving back home from a work video shoot and listening to this very podcast that you're listening to now, and I stopped my car abruptly, as we were just discussing. I stopped because I saw these signs for Fort McClary here in Kittery Point, and then I saw the fort, and it's really cool, and I thought, I gotta go see this thing. So I pulled over, and I got out. The gate was closed, so I thought maybe I shouldn't come in, but the sign on the gate said no trespassing after sunset, and it's before sunset, so trespassing's fine. Anyway, just wanted to emphasize that, pull over your car. Get out sometimes. Do it as often as you can. Try not to be late to everything like I am.
Before we broke for the day, I asked Crystal what her priorities if elected.
First, so I'm sort of thinking of this as, so I'm elected in November.
Mm-hmm.
I would be sworn in very early January. It's usually one of the first couple days in January. And then I think there's usually 2 council meetings in January. I can tell you what my first meeting will include. An arts commission. There's just we're literally leaving money on the table by not having an arts commission, because we could immediately apply for grant money. There are certain places you can apply for grant money that literally everyone that applies gets money every year. Rochester's got $15,000 for 10 new murals in their downtown because they have an arts commission.
They're putting up murals all the time in Rochester.
I'm so jealous. My good friend Polana is the city councilor over there, and I'm like, stop being so cool, or like bring some of that energy this way. So arts commission, absolutely, stroke of the pen, no need to wait. We should do it right now. And in fact, I've told the mayor, please steal this idea from me. Please beat me to the punch. We should be doing this right now. It shouldn't have to wait for me. A housing task force, more than a year overdue. I think it was back in December. I started reaching out to the mayor being like, hey, sure you've thought of this already. Sure you're doing it already. But like, in case you're not, like, really think we need a housing task force. Insert everything I said earlier about seeing what happens in Portsmouth and Dover, and just, what everyone mostly who's paying attention to the housing market knows right now. It's bonkers. It's through the roof. This house that I live in just sold too fast for like us as tenants to put together an offer, which we were very serious about doing, because the housing market is moving so quickly. Things are selling at like very high overcost. There's something called inclusionary zoning, which is sort of a broad term for a lot of different zoning that can include like accessory dwelling units, encouraging multifamily units. There's a lot of neighborhoods that are zoned just for single family. A lot of this goes back to redlining practices to sort of separate wealthier white communities from communities of color. And so bringing in the opportunity to build multifamily and multi-unit houses. This neighborhood that I live in, my house is grandfathered in. It's a 3-unit. We wouldn't be able to build that house today because it's single family and or duplex only up here. So there's a lot of zoning tweaks that could be changed to address the need for a lot more housing stock. And all of that is like super nerdy stuff. We do have a regional expert, the Workforce Housing Coalition, Sarah Reitzman, who I believe you know.
I do. Has been on this podcast.
Has written a letter to the mayor sort of pleading, please, I would love to come and like offer our expertise and help Somersworth get some of your zoning in order. And it's just been met with silence or kicking the can down the road. So those are 2 things that I would do immediately.
And there was more. Establishing a youth council, reducing red tape at City Hall. Crystal had a lot of concrete proposals, which her social media accounts soon after began sharing on these nice, clean, green slides, which I thought was a really effective move. But I'm getting ahead of myself. She mentioned her campaign slogan, which is,
Summersworth can't wait. And you've heard me sort of talk about from a policy perspective why I think we can't wait to implement some of these things. But my favorite spin on that slogan is like the excitement. Like, I can't wait for an arts commission. I can't wait for people to start imagining what we want to paint on our water tower. You know, like, what can't you wait for? Like, I really want that energy of people knowing that, like, their government, their city hall is open. This is your city hall. We welcome your ideas. We're not going to meet your ideas with, here's the thing we kind of did similar to that 10 years ago, so we're not going to, like, explore your idea or be excited with you. Like, I just want to bring that excitement for new ideas back into the city hall.
That's the mark of a good tagline, right? Is you can read it.
Yeah.
What is the current status of your campaign? Like, do you have, like, official titles for, like, do you have, like, is, like, Emmett Soldati, like, your official, like, consigliere, you know?
He's like a senior advisor, I'd say, for sure. I mean, Emmett and I have worked together on a bunch of campaigns, both for each other and for other people. I certainly super value his opinion. We're very vision aligned when it comes to, I mean, he had this, you know, local first vision for the NHTP chair race that he ran, and there's so much from that I feel inspired about. But so I've got a nice team going. We've got a Slack going. We've got a shared Google Drive folder where we're communicating on all the platforms. I have an accessibility consultant, which I'm really excited about.
And that accessibility coordinator is, you guessed it, Jules Good. Sometimes I think that people who listen to this show who don't live around here must think there are only like 15 people living in New Hampshire, and that's why there's such an insane amount of overlap between the guests on this podcast. And, you know, they're basically correct.
I mean, accessibility from so many different perspectives is like one of the cornerstones of my campaign. It's roads and sidewalks, the physical accessibility element of our library, which we're just finally getting through like an assessment of to tell us how bad it is, because we know it's terribly inaccessible. But also from a digital perspective, I mean, a lot of times our city will put out things that are just embedded weird clip art, you know, not even to comment on the graphic nature of them. There's no alt text a lot of times. There's no caption at all. There's no text to be able to copy and paste, machine readable, none of that. And then just the accessibility of, like, whether this is smart or not. I haven't run into a problem yet, knock on whatever, but like my home address and my cell phone number are just listed on the city website. Like, I want to be accessible, and so far, like, I kind of wish I was constantly inundated with phone calls, but I'm not. But if somebody does want to reach out to me, they have a direct line of communication. So accessibility from a lot of different standpoints is really important to me, and even like the approach of, like, I want people of varying abilities and comfort levels to be able to volunteer in my campaign. So, like, another thing Jules is helping me with is making sure that, like, you know, if we're putting together our letter, is it raining?
Might be.
I'm so confused. You know, making sure that people can volunteer in ways that, like, if you're not comfortable knocking on a door and talking to a stranger, here's a kit where you can, like, help fold and address letters. Do we need to move?
I think we'll be okay for a minute. We're coming in for a landing anyway, so the rain is, like, enforcing an end.
Oh my god. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think that's really interesting. That's something that I feel like I learned. That's something that I learned from Jules, is that, like, accessibility leads to accessibility. And it's like it's in every sense of the word. But yeah. Okay, well. Yeah. End of first conversation.
Yo, my eyes are sore, being a senator, behind closed doors, hitting truth to the seafloor. The rich don't north ignore the tug of war, while the kids are poor, open new and better drugstores. So I became hardcore, couldn't take it no more. I'ma reveal everything, change the law. I find myself walking the streets, trying to find what's really going on in the streets.
So we actually talked, like, 3 months ago.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, it was like July.
God. Wow.
So now you're, like, in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Like, campaigning. You know, it was, like, right before your, like, kickoff party.
Yep.
So that's a distant memory now.
A distant memory.
And
wow.
so this week you had a forum, right?
I did, yes.
Tell me what that was like. What was that about?
So the forum was between now there are 3 candidates for Summersworth mayor. At the time when I talked to you, there was only 2. We had a third person jump in the race pretty late in the filing period. So we had All three of us on this forum, it was organized by the Falls Chamber of Commerce, which is the Chamber of Commerce that covers Somersworth as well as Rollinsford and Berwick. And they basically said, you'll each get 3-minute opening statement, 2-minute closing statement, and we're going to collect questions from people, and everyone's going to get 1 minute to answer each. And we're just going to rotate, who goes first on each question. Mm-hmm. They sent us the questions ahead of time. They were trying to eliminate controversialness or, this is not a debate, they said. This is a forum. We just want to get it out there, information on where you stand on different issues. So, yeah.
So was that held in person?
It was on Zoom, which was actually really great because, you can have your notes there and, your glass of water or whatever. So, yeah, it was all on Zoom, both for us, the candidates, and the moderator and the host. And then, folks watching were just... I think there was actually a chat, but, you couldn't see them on right. camera. It was just sort of webinar style.
So how do you feel like it went?
I feel awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like it went really, really well for me. I feel like I was super prepared. I was happy with all my answers. I felt super nervous, but I don't think that came across. I mean, everybody else said you seemed wicked, calm, cool, collected, focused. So I feel like I did really, really well. I feel like my opponents did not see, obviously I'm biased, but they didn't seem as prepared and focused as me. And, obviously I am challenging an incumbent mayor who I think his strategy was to try to get me to respond to a lot of attacks. So there was a lot of defensiveness and, direct things that I just, ignored and answered the questions with, my solutions to the issues.
At this point, having listened to the other candidates too, what do you feel like are the sort of the dividing lines between the three of you?
Yeah, so, the way that I think a lot of people are reporting it is, I think that actually the opening line from Foster's, the local paper's reporting said, longtime incumbent, a progressive challenger in reference to me, and, a third conservative option, self-described conservative option. So I think, the current mayor's appeal to the people is that if you like Somersworth and you think things are going in the right direction, stick with me, stick with me, kid. I got a mailer from him just a few days before the forum, and it was filled with a lot of sentences. The beginning phrase, "let us continue," was bolded every single time. So I was like, okay, this is your message. Let us continue with all of the things that we're doing. My message is very much like we are not doing enough. We are falling way behind the other surrounding communities in terms of growth. I talked about how Dover, we just got census data, and Dover grew 9.1%, Rochester grew 9.3%, Berwick grew 9.7%, Somersworth grew 1% in the last decade. And a lot of that is, I have seen in my time on council, developers come forward and then either their idea gets shot down or they're annoyed by the red tape or, they don't get this one crosswalk or whatever, and they'll leave. And that we've lost a lot of big opportunities, both with housing and, entertainment, businesses, things like that. So my pitch is really like, we can't wait to update, things like our zoning laws and cutting the red tape, and, our roads and sidewalks do not reflect the high property tax bills that people are paying, even though I know that has a lot to do with state education funding and all these other things. If people aren't seeing their roads and sidewalks getting fixed, they're going to be a lot more unhappy with a high taxpayer bill. So, I'm trying to pitch all these specific things that I think we need improvement on. The third candidate, he keeps saying he's running because he wants there to be a conservative option. In answer to...
It doesn't even sound like he's running to win.
Yeah. I mean, he keeps saying that, and I'm like, it doesn't... Okay, yeah.
I just want to make sure people have that option.
I want to make sure you have the conservative option. And, in answer to the question of who's your political hero, he said Rand Paul, because he thinks Rand Paul is very bravely standing up to a lot of COVID misinformation. So I was like, all right.
You were like, I'm glad this forum is on. It's on Zoom.
Yeah. So he's, you'll see a lot of... Ken Hilton is the third candidate. You'll see a lot of Ken Hilton signs next to Trump flags. So that's very much, he's super, super conservative.
I honestly thought for a second there that Crystal was going to tell me that Ken Hilton's actual campaign slogan was, Ken Hilton is the third candidate. Anyway, Crystal is seen as the further left challenger to the incumbent mayor's sort of liberal centrist position. So, thinking about basic political game theory here, the entrance of a new right-wing candidate would, in theory, help Crystal. It pulls conservative support away from the incumbent mayor, takes away the votes that he would have received that Crystal was never going to get. And yet, that's not how politics works anymore. We still say right-wing to mean Republican voters, but their political ideology doesn't fit on that line. Huge portions of the party base are now conspiracy theorist, anti-government Trump loyalists who are ready to abandon any belief that threatens the intricate balancing act of fury, grievance, macho posturing, and hypersensitivity that now governs their every thought and behavior. I'm just saying the entrance of a third candidate in this race is an interesting development, but is also basically meaningless for our purposes.
You mentioned the fact that you're sort of being painted in the media as the progressive challenger, but your messaging is like, let's fix our sidewalks.
Yeah.
Let's let's bring more developers in. These are not like super progressive positions.
No, cut the red tape. Like, I sound like a Republican half the time. I'm like, these are actually pretty conservative and pretty basic, meat and potatoes stances.
Yeah.
And I think, that's what people care about, and that's why I'm involved in local politics instead of running for a partisan position, because I know that running for local stuff can actually really affect so much more everyday quality of life issues.
Yeah, so Hilliard, am I saying that right?
Hilliard. Yeah.
Hilliard, are his attacks on you along those lines? Like, a vote for Crystal is a vote for wokeness run amok? a vote for the squad?
Wow, I would love that attack. I mean, align me with Ayanna Pressley and AOC all day long. That would be great. So in the forum, let me see if I can remember. Honestly, the other nice thing about Zoom is you don't even have to look at the I had my document with my questions covering the squares of my opponents. I was like, I don't need to. I can watch this later and see how they react. I'm just here to talk to the people.
That's actually a very good strategy.
It was really good, because I was like, I'm not gonna let any of this derail me.
As an aside, I will say, as far as your campaigning, like what you've got going on social media and everything, I really like it. I think it clearly articulates like your stances in like ways that like even if you were to scroll past it, you would still absorb it,
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, I really like this. And like, I don't know, something about like the green really pops.
Yep.
It's like, it's good stuff.
Green means go.
Yeah.
It means growth. It means abundance. I love the color. It's a very vibrant sort of, green means go. And that was my colors last time as well. And it just happens to be that my biggest opponent signs are red, which you may interpret as stop.
Yeah. Funny.
Let us continue.
Fun fact, I just read that the reason that when Mr. Rogers neighborhood, the reason it always starts with a yellow light flashing on the traffic light is Mr. Rogers' way of kind of saying like, all right, let's everybody slow down and let's have a peaceful half an hour here.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah,
we watch
half an episode of Mr. Rogers every day with my boys.
Oh my God, I love that.
So it's a lot of fun.
I'm just gonna steal that and put it in my daily practice. I was just WMUR just gave me the opportunity to do a 1-minute pitch. They're doing that for all the candidates.
Yeah,
and they're gonna put it online. And I was chatting with my campaign manager, Emmett, who and I was like, what do I say? Like, I had this great 3-minute opening statement, I think, from the forum, but like, this is 1 minute, it's even smaller. I was like, what do you think I could say that's literally just like, I'm Mr. Rogers, won't you be my neighbor? Like, that's the vibe that I want to. I'm like, Leslie Knope and Mr. Rogers, those are my like campaign
put pictures of them behind you. Yeah, no, that's great. It's funny. You're giving me flashbacks to the week because I was doing these 90-second videos for the UNH Sustainability Slam.
Oh,
and,
cool.
90 seconds is like a funny, like 1 minute, 90 seconds, tough time frames for fitting a lot of information in.
Yeah.
90 seconds is a little easier because you get 30 seconds beginning, 30 seconds middle, 30 seconds end. Mm-hmm. And you can really, it's more like 20 intro, 20 outro. And then, but with 60 seconds, it's like...
It's so short. Yeah, it was really difficult in that forum to do that, but I actually really liked it because it really, really forces you to edit and to be really specific. And, you know, I tried to get like an actual like policy commitment in each of my
Yes.
answers. And I think that set me apart.
It brings new meaning to campaign in poetry, govern in prose, because that's what I always think of poetry as being, right? Is like the most
Yeah.
condensed possible form of language. It's unfortunate, or it would be kind of fun if they made you like answer in the form of a haiku.
Oh, I would actually really love that.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Oh,
right?
I would really love that. You know, I've been doing these. You mentioned like seeing the policies and stuff. So
Yeah.
I've been doing these 9 p.m. Ask Me Anythings on each of the 10 like policies.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember exactly where the idea came from. I think it was like several different people had like similar ideas, and I mashed them together. But it's been so good and such a like creative use of the digital COVID era, because suddenly it just occurred to me. I was like, I'm not going to be able to knock on everyone's door. Not everyone's going to answer my phone call. But you want to vote for someone that you can see talking. So as much as I cringe at the thought of like going live and here's my face and you have to listen to my like words and I'm going to feel stupid or whatever, I really think it's really effective. And I've started to get like people actually tuning in and being like, oh, I saw that even if I didn't see it live. I saw the video. You were talking about this one specific issue. It's clear you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's been really, really effective.
It's also like it's using that technology really to your advantage, because like right now, who knows how long this will be, but like Instagram and Facebook really pump that live thing.
Right.
If you're going live, they let everybody
Yeah.
who follows you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like extremely rare these days for the way that the internet works with like engagement.
Longtime listeners of the show will understand how rare it is for me to actually come prepared with questions to an interview, but I actually did this time, and we started getting to them here. Also, listen up for a third episode in a row reference to new urbanism coming up.
What is the best part about running for mayor?
Ooh. What is the best part about running for mayor? I mean, it's my favorite part is getting messages from people that I've never met before that have ideas. Somebody reached out to me just today actually saying like, oh, I can't remember if it was they saw the forum or they saw some video or something, but they were like, you know, I really liked your ideas. I liked your vision. Like, you know, you have my support. I'm going to vote for you. And they were like, well, I really want to talk to you, like maybe after the election and I, you know, hopefully you'll win, about these ideas more. And they, you know, they're connected with our sister downtown in Berwick, and they sent me this video, which I haven't seen yet, but they were like, watch this when you have time, LOL, you know, like about, you know, downtown development and new urbanism and, you know, developing communities with a really thoughtful approach. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I never would have met this person who also lives in Somersworth, who also is really interested in developing a community in a smart and sustainable way, if I wasn't putting myself out there running for mayor, like talking about these ideas. So I think I would recommend it to anyone as a way to just meet your neighbors who are aligned with your values. It's exhausting, but you know, it's a win-win.
That might be your answer to the next question, which is what's the worst part about running for mayor?
I mean, yeah, it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It definitely opens you up to a lot of criticism, especially if you're running against a specific person. When I ran as an at-large counselor, it's the top 4 vote getters, so nobody's running against anyone. It feels very combative to run against someone, and I decided to run only after I figured out what I was running for, because I didn't want to run against someone, but somebody's perceiving that as you're running against them. And I'm not a person who likes conflict. I'm just a person who thinks we can do better for our community. And so, it definitely, it takes guts, to put yourself out there. It feels like you have to be really brave. You never feel brave, you feel nervous, and then later you're like, wow, that was really brave. And I guess you just kind of have to know that and not take it personally when there are other people out there backing the other person and cheering them on when they're saying negative things about you, and just have to be like, all right, well, that's their guy. They can support that person, that's fine. Hopefully, after the results we'll all be on the same team here. It's just it's
got to be it is like such a public thing, right? And you're not
Yeah, and
of
people
us.
know what a mayor is. Like when you're running for city council, it's like, oh, good for you. That sounds like a weird, like nerdy thing. But like you're running for mayor, it's like people know that's a leader
Yeah.
of a community, and so it's audacious.
I think about the fact that like all of us have been like who've like been on the internet for a long time. Like we have a sense of sort of like you have these weird brushes with like the anonymous public.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I ran a blog long enough that sometimes I would write things and I would say something without realizing what I've said was like hurtful or something.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
really hear it from people in a way that stays with you, right? And that's a good thing for the most part because you learn your lesson and you absorb the way that you've like hurt people through just things that you write. But this is a totally different set of people, right? Like now you're running for mayor. Now you're putting yourself out in front of the letter to the editor crowd.
Yep.
You know? And it's like, I was imagining this just now. Like I have never really thought about it that way. I was imagining the way that you're putting yourself out there, and that like, ooh, that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
And I am not a person who gets nervous about like public stuff, but yowza.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Especially again as you're running against, I'm running against an incumbent who's like been in power in this community for so long. I mean, it's been 20 years since he first was elected as a councilor and then was a mayor. And before that, he was a state rep and he, worked his way up in the school system. Now he's the assistant superintendent. Like he holds a lot of power in the city. And the amount of times people have said like, I'm voting for you, but I can't put your lawn I can't put your lawn sign on my lawn because, he knows where I live or whatever. I'm just like, wow, like, should I be scared? I don't feel scared, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does feel, I definitely feel that, that power struggle. And to me, I feel like, I don't have anything to hide, so I'm not worried about like a scandal coming out or whatever. I don't have anything that this person can hold over me in terms of my job or whatever. So I'm a little bit confused when people seem like, oh my God, that's so brave. This person has so much power. I'm like, but this is a democracy and like you're allowed to run against someone and I'm just offering a different view. Like people can do this. It's fine.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad that other people are like seeing it and being like, oh, this is inspiring. Maybe I can run too. Like, that's the goal.
And that has happened.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really fun candidates running right now.
Polana Hunt Hawkins, the city of Rochester's first openly transgender city councilor, actually announced her run for mayor of nearby Rochester at Crystal's campaign kickoff event, which was invited, by the way. Crystal has long encouraged other women to run for office, and so that was an intentional part of the event. It wasn't like wearing white to a wedding. Also, Joanna Kelly, a local prominent black businesswoman, is running for city council in Portsmouth this year. And Jules Good announced their run for Somersworth Select Person. Polana, I would just like to single out here for having truly gorgeous floral campaign signs. They are the best campaign signs I've ever seen, and they made me completely rethink the genre. I did ask Crystal if the oft-mentioned supply chain issues affected things like printing of campaign signs, but then we started talking almost immediately about how it's impacted our access to various preferred pet foods, and so I'm just going to cut that part out.
So what is something that surprised you about this campaign so far?
I think I was nervous at the beginning that I would be, everybody kept saying you're going up against this big machine, you're going up against this very powerful incumbent. I'm surprised at how it has continued to feel, easy's not the right word because I'm exhausted. So it's like, it's tiring, but like, I don't feel like anything big and bad has happened, like you're always worried that something, you're challenging a powerful person or you're, I think about when I quit my job, like as another very similar, like bold step, like you're worried someone's going to come and arrest you, that you're not allowed to do this. And like, I think I'm surprised that like, it's going really well. And like, I'm winning a lot of support and I don't know, I guess maybe I'm just waiting for like, is there going to be some big thing that happens at the very end that's like the big attack or whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm surprised that I still feel like pretty confident and good and positive at this point. It's like 10 days before the election.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
still
a good
like,
answer.
I feel great.
What do you feel like Do you feel like you have made any like mistakes or missteps?
Ooh, good question. Mistakes or missteps? I do feel like I underestimated how much money I should have raised. We just today approved our very final mailer that's going out. So I got the endorsement of the American Federation of Teachers, the teachers union, which is incredibly exciting when you're running against a school administrator to be able to say, like, teachers back me. So we thought it was really important, although I haven't raised this money yet, to get that out as a mailer. Just a very cheap 4x6, black ink mailer. And I'm like, well, if I don't raise the extra $2,000 I need to send this mailer, like, I'm just going to have to get, like, a second job as soon as I finish this or something, like, put it on my credit card. I really underestimated how much my opponent clearly has in a war chest, because he's been sending, like 2 mailers a week for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm like, I'm adding up. I'm like, I know we use the same union printer. That's $20,000 I've gotten in the mail from you already. And like, I'm trying to hit 15 so that I can cover this last mailer. So that was just like an underestimate. I was like, wow, I think I can. I thought the ambitious goal was to raise $10,000, which sounded like way too much. So I think I raised like 3,000 or 4,000 to run for city council, and that felt like more than enough. But yeah, I'm almost up to 15,000, and I just feel like, I didn't get the huge 4x8 lawn signs that he's got everywhere, which, I don't feel like that's a very effective use of money, but I'm just like, wow, there's a lot of money on the other side.
No, the really big campaign signs feel like they're overcompensating for something.
I really think they're too big. I really just do. Yeah.
They're
aggressive, and they're red, and they're red with white letters, so they just feel very Trumpian to me.
Yes, for sure. I appreciate the real numbers, because I feel like it's very hard to know how much things cost. And working with like local nonprofits and, and like being on like a board and that kind of thing, the money constantly freaks me out.
Yeah.
Constantly freaks me out. It costs so much money to do anything.
It. Yeah.
Yeah.
True cost.
Geez, it's like, how much does it cost to run for mayor? Yeah, it's like, and obviously that varies a lot if you're Michael Bloomberg. How much does it cost to run for mayor?
Right.
Sky's the limit. But
well, and it's interesting too, because in New Hampshire, local races for like financial disclosures, it's based on the city, and in Somersworth, there's no financial disclosures required. So I couldn't go and look up like, oh, what have people raised before? Like, that's what they always tell you. Like, if you want to know how much to raise, go and look at the records and see, like, what do people typically raise to run for this position, which you can find in, like, state level and federal level races. But for local races, there's just not a paper trail. It's a lot of extra paperwork that they say you don't have to do, so you don't do it. So, it's really hard to tell. So you just have to kind of build the budget on how many mailers do I want? You have to get those quotes. How many lawn signs? Are there any other costs? Mailers and lawn signs are just definitely the big ones. But yeah, I mean, Facebook ads, that's another couple $100. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's different. I think for me at this point in the race, I feel like I'm really solid on the messaging. When people hear my message, especially as compared to the others, I'm winning. I think the thing is, when you have somebody that's putting so much money on the other side, tons of big lawn signs, a literal billboard, and mailer after mailer after mailer, I just want people to feel confident that there is another viable option so that they do show up and vote. Because I believe if enough people show up and vote, I'll definitely win. Like, I got this. But if they feel like, clearly there's a front runner, maybe I just won't show up. That's what concerns me, and that's why I'm like, all right, we got to get one more mailer out. We got the teachers, like the last mailer we sent out. I got the sheriff, these are the big things I want people to know. Like, this is a viable campaign.
Yeah. No, that was cool. I saw the sheriff endorsement thing.
Yeah,
I was like, that's great. I mean,
Mark
I know.
Brave. I love him. He's been such a great example of like a really good public safety official. Like, he sends people out, the sheriff's role is to like serve papers and do things like that. And he always sends his officers out with like, here's how to apply, if we're serving you with eviction notices, here's how you can apply for emergency rental assistance program funds. Like, I mean, he really approaches it with that compassion. So I'm like, that's a law enforcement official that I actually want on my side. I'm on the side of,
What do you think was the single smartest decision that you made in this entire campaign so far?
Fresh off the forum, I'd say not taking the bait of some of the attacks. I think it was really difficult in the days leading up to it. I knew my opponent would probably do that, just based on what I have seen. And I was really trying to figure out, is it going to be perceived as weak if I ignore it? Mm-hmm. And I just decided people aren't here for that type of show. Like, people want to hear that somebody cares about the issues, cares about them as a voter. Getting into a spat with someone is just, like, never a good look. So I was like, I'm just going to ignore it. And I think that was really smart, because people have, been messaging me ever since that are watching it, either had watched it live or have caught up with it. And they were like, I really appreciate that you didn't, like, take the bait every time he attacked you. And that makes me feel really good, because I was debating, like, oh, do I, should I respond or should I defend? And I was like, none of the attacks really had much substance anyway. So
yeah, I think it's a pretty powerful thing, especially if you can maintain it, which it sounds like you did. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if he never breaks through, then it's like, perfect. Yeah. Each successive attack makes him look worse and worse.
Yeah. It was not pretty.
Real power move.
The thing that everybody is asking me at this point, probably for the last couple of weeks, and it's becoming more frequent now, is everybody's just like, how are you feeling? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it takes a lot of energy to answer that question, because it's like, today I'm feeling great, tomorrow I'm feeling exhausted, I think I'm going to win, I think I'm going to blow it out of the water, I think it's going to be really close. And I kind of decided today, for the sake of my energy and my mental health, I'm going to come up with one answer to answer this for the rest of the campaign. And it's just, I think it's going to be close. I think a ton of people are going to come out and vote, and it's going to be close. Because it's probably my opinion, although it changes from moment to moment. Like, there definitely are times where I'm like, is anyone voting for this guy? But then there are times where I'm like, am I going to lose? So I think that's my on the record answer from now through the rest of the campaign. I think it's going to be close. I think I'm going to win, but I think it's going to be close.
I feel the same way. Actually, I don't really think it's going to be close, but that's because I have such a sense of like predestination about things, and it's just like, the reason you're going to win is because it's the better story. And therefore that's what will happen.
I love that. I love that. I want that to be true. I had this like random flash of a I don't know, like a premonition or whatever. And I was like, wow, I'm going to get 1,200 votes. And that would be ridiculous. Like, 1,300 people total voted in the last election.
Yeah.
My opponent won with roughly 1,100 of those votes. So a couple hundred people just didn't vote at all. It wasn't a contested race. I won my councilor race with almost 800 votes. So, like, if the same amount of turnout came, it's going to be like a 600, 500 race. I think we're going to get more people to turn out. So what's that, 1,500, 1,600 votes? If one candidate in a three-way race got 1,200 votes, that would be insane. But that was just like a random thing that pops into my head. Like, oh, I'm going to win with 1,200 votes. And I was like, wow. Well, that's a bold thought. But I just want that on the record. If I win with 1,200 votes.
You called it.
I had that random thought. But yeah.
What are you going to do what's the first thing you're going to do if you win?
Cry. Thank everyone. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously I've pictured it. I keep rewatching Knock Down the House on Netflix, which is a documentary that follows 5 or 6 candidates, obviously the most prominent of whom is AOC. And I openly sob every single time I see her reaction to her winning, which is obviously like a way different race than this tiny little local election. But it's going to be equally surprising because there are 0 polling numbers for a race this small. So I literally have no idea. Like, the first poll that we get the report in from is going to be fascinating. Usually the trends kind of hold. So if one candidate is super winning any of the wards, that's probably the candidate that won in all 5 wards. But so it's going to be a shock either way, I think. And yeah, it's either way, it's going to be either, well, I have more time to watch birds now, and that's wonderful. And I got somebody on the record held accountable for a lot of things. Or it's going to be like, oh shit, I have a lot of work I got to do in the next month and a half to get ready for actually being in charge.
Yeah. It's exciting.
But either way, I'm going on vacation with my girlfriend and dog up to Acadia the following weekend. Win or lose. So.
All right. Well, I wish you luck and strength on that day.
Thanks.
And up into that day, but particularly on that day.
Thank you.
But yeah, and
So
I look
excited.
forward to, I look forward to talking to you afterwards about how it all went.
Yeah. Me too.
Sitting in the mayor's office next time.
All right. See you in the mayor's office. I love it.
Hip-hop past all your tall social hurdles like the nationwide project, prison industry complex. Working class poor better keep your alarms set. Streets too loud to ever hear freedom ring. Stay evacuate your sleep. It's dangerous to dream, but your chain cat get your bam. Dead now, killing fields need blood, the grave, the cash cow. It's a numbers game, but shit don't add up somehow.
It occurs to me that people who listen to this show won't necessarily know what happened, so let's take me through it. Like, let's go back to election night and tell me about kind of what were the events of the day. Actually, let's start there. I'll start the morning of the election and take me through the events of the day. It is now December 3rd, 2021, and I'm sitting down with Crystal for our final interview about a month after the election took place.
Yeah, well, of course, like any big day, it was a day filled with a lot of excitement. Got up super early. The polls opened at 8, so we had to be at a variety of places, getting the signs together for people to hold at the polls. And I went and picked up my campaign volunteer over in Berwick, and then we met at Teetotaler around I think 7:15 to make sure we had coffee ready to go and the signs ready to go. It was an exciting day. We were done campaigning. Well, not quite done campaigning. I still had a list of people that I was supposed to call. It ended up being kind of difficult to try to make calls and be out at the polls at the same time because a lot of people were talking, but it was very exciting. It's always nice to be out, chatting with people that are also holding signs. And the really fun part for me was getting to know really well some of the supporters of some of my opponents, like Ken Hilton, who was running as the Republican representative. I saw him and his wife a couple times throughout the day, and I just kept telling them, you have the best people. Like, all of your people are so fun and nice, and, we're very congenial with each other. So, yeah, it was very exciting. We were really pulling for my friend Barbara Wentworth, who was running in school board District 2, Ward 2, and, popping in and out through all the polls all day. Most of my family showed up as well. My mom and my sister did a shift, and my dad did a shift, holding signs at the polls and meeting people. So it was weird though, because I think I started realizing at the polls that Ken Hilton, the Republican candidate, was going to do way better than I thought, just based on people that were honking clearly at him going by, people that were, high-fiving as they went in and out of the polls. And I started thinking, I might be wrong about how poorly this guy's gonna do. I really saw it as a race between me and the incumbent. So that realization happened real early. After the polls closed, we met at Teetotaler to sort of figure out what the results were. We had people waiting at each poll to text us the results as they came in. Barbara Wentworth from Ward 2 was there with us as well, and she got the Ward 2 results first. That was the first ward that we heard about, and she read the incumbent's total, and then she read her name, and she just started crying. So we were all like, is this good crying or bad crying? Did you win? And she just nodded yes, and everybody cheered, and everybody was crying. She was running against this 10 plus year school board member who was the chair of the school board, and she beat him, and she was a first time candidate. So that was really exciting. And we were like, read the other ones. And she was like, I don't want to, because she could see that Dana was higher than I was, that Ken was just behind me. And that trend very quickly played out to be pretty much what the results were across the board. I lost the race, came in second with Ken Hilton a very close third behind me. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but the incumbent won with 800 and change votes. I came second with about 650, I think, and then Ken Hilton was 18 votes behind me, which was really surprising to me. I think the biggest surprise was it ended up being like almost a 3-way split.
Yeah, I remember initially thinking about Ken Hilton that it was gonna help you. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you imagine the three of you in a line, right, you'd be pulling votes. But we talked, I'm not sure if it ended up making it in because I try to not have as few references to Donald Trump as possible. But we talked about this idea of just disruptor candidates, and that Donald Trump can sometimes be popular with people that you wouldn't expect him to be popular with because he's just in their minds, an anti-establishment guy. And so that's a weird thing, right? Is this like disruption energy kind of like doesn't fall along the political spectrum the way that you think it would. So that was a surprising turn of events to see Ken Hilton's vote totals being high.
Yeah. I think what happened, my takeaway sort of immediately and still is I really expected, like you mentioned, that the Republican candidate was going to pull from the person who was sort of defined by everyone as the more centrist candidate, which was the incumbent, who tended to, court the Republican vote a little bit more with the red signs and the very centrist messaging. And I believe what ended up happening is that, the 1,200 plus voters that didn't want to vote for the incumbent ended up splitting their votes between, the Republican or the Democratic challenger.
Yeah.
I talked to a number of people afterwards who were like, I did vote for Ken, but I really just wanted a change. Or, I voted for you and I really wish that you would win. So it seemed like the joint sentiment for both of us challengers were, it's a small comfort, but at least my comfort is the majority of the city wanted a change. And unfortunately, we ended up splitting the change vote.
Yeah. So how did you feel? Right after that, how did you? Are you a compartmentalizing kind of person? Are you what? Talk to me about it.
And it was really important to include that Barbara won because that was like immediately what everyone was focused on. I think is this other challenger new candidate won, and it was very much a joint results watch party. So that's kind of where I went to pretty quickly. Is just like, well, let's celebrate the wins, right? We learned shortly thereafter that my good friend Polana in Rochester also lost her race for mayor. So there were a few disappointing results. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was in a crowd of people. I was, trying to just remain positive. I remember my face was just really hot. I was like, is this where all my adrenaline is going? Like, I didn't feel like I was going to cry or anything. It wasn't that I was upset. It was more just, I was really surprised. I was very surprised. I was very surprised at how well the incumbent did. I was very surprised, obviously, that I lost because I thought I was going to win. I was very surprised that Ken did so well. I was just sort of processing it and also, just trying to express my gratitude for everybody that had been working on the campaign. And, I didn't want to be just fall apart or anything. And I was just exhausted. So really, I was just trying to continue to share that gratitude with everyone that was there. I mean, there were people that were there that I had only met that day, but who had been volunteering for me for a while. So I really was just focused on like, okay, stay present. You can like work this out later. But yeah, it was a little bit surreal, just the experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, I know you did go on the trip. You said you were going to go on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, went to Acadia. Yep, with my girlfriend and my dog, and that was great. It was tough to unplug. I mean, I had 2 half days of work after that because my job involves tracking the election results of women across the state as well. So it was sort of not too much of a break, and then a real break at actually getting out of town. I don't think it really hit me until probably a week and a half later because it was, literally the night after the election, I was at the Dover City Council meeting rallying for the Willand shelter to be open 24/7. That had been a really big push of mine just as a counselor throughout the time period of the campaign. And that was still going on. And then, the next week it was the Rochester vote. And so I was still like in the thick of all this activism. Mm-hmm. And so it took a while for that crash to finally come of just like, oh, the exhaustion finally hits and, just sort of thinking through like, oh, what if it had gotten out there earlier and met more people one-on-one? What if I had knocked on every single door in Somersworth? Would I have done better? But in general, it was just, I definitely was proud of the campaign that I ran. It felt like the campaign that I wanted to run. And ultimately, I kind of had to be like, well, if that wasn't the overwhelming prevailing message, even though I do believe looking at the results, people wanted a change, but not enough people wanted the same change. So it kind of told me, all right, this isn't my moment. This isn't the time. Kind of looking forward to a little bit of a break.
So where does that leave you politically? Are you still serving as a city councilor?
For a few more weeks. So all the positions are up at once. So instead of running for re-election as councilor, I decided to run for mayor. So it's sort of win all or nothing. So my last city council meeting is in a couple of weeks in December. And then come January 1st, I will not be an elected official anymore. So I will be just a free agent. And the silver lining there is, I never felt super embraced by the council or the mayor, obviously. So I never really felt like I was super in the know. And knowing now that, the city manager posts his report online, that's the same thing he emails councilors right afterwards. I'm going to be equally as informed as a private citizen and will be able to show up and speak my piece at any of the public comments. And in a way, I think that can have just as much impact, because as a legislator, you have to be somewhat impartial and sit up there on the dais and just hope that people come forward to say something that you can sort of grab onto and be like, this is what the people are really saying. Here are people showing up and actually speaking. So being able to do that feels like I'll be able to have, an impact still, while obviously having a break from the official duties.
So this is something that Crystal had not mentioned before that I found sort of surprising, which was a feeling of frustration and inefficacy in her position as a city councilor. Like, I mentioned the possibility that some of her positions might be picked up by the mayor and the city council now as a result of her making them issues in the campaign. That is something that traditionally happens when progressive challengers articulate positions in an election. The incumbent sees the popularity of those positions and absorbs them, or a milder version of them. But Crystal wasn't so sure that would happen.
I'm not sure that those in power that will remain in power next year are convinced that they care about those things or that those things matter. I mean, I would love to see them form an arts commission. Let's see if they do it. But in the meantime, I think it's just as effective, arguably more effective, that the citizen that came forward has already started meeting with people and trying to formulate cool ideas. And we don't need government bureaucracy to do cool things. Particularly for the Arts Council, I think that's something that can be a citizen-led initiative that can thrive outside of government. For things like, the accessibility audit that I would love the city to do. I don't see a champion currently on the council or the mayor that really cares about that issue, and that would have to be a city-led thing, because to audit the city operations, you got to have somebody inside the city operations that cares about that. My hope is if we get a new manager in the next couple of years, which I look forward to, that new manager will have the impetus to do something like that. I mean, we finally got this library accessibility audit, passed, but, even in looking at the city hall accessibility, I can't remember if I had mentioned this before, but, we have one of our state reps who uses a walker, and she had approached the city manager a couple of years ago asking if they would put a push button door on City Hall, and his response was, oh, they told us we didn't have to do that because we're grandfathered in. So when you have people like that are running the city, that are just saying, like, obviously their job is to look out for the budget, so they don't want to do anything that's going to cost money, but instead of here's something our citizens are struggling with, let's make it better, the position is currently really, let's defend why things are the way they are and make sure we don't do anything that's going to cost us extra money. So stuff like that, I think, is going to continue to take people pushing for. And if the city's not willing to do an accessibility audit, like we're gonna have to break it down ourselves and be like, okay, can we focus at least on sidewalks on this block? And, you know, maybe in a couple months we can try to get them to add alt text to images on Facebook, or, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. You talked definitely about that mindset of that kind of like, let's defend what we've done rather than look for something new to do. And it is frustrating for there to be an election where the incumbent gets reelected, because I think it rewards that form of thinking. And so it's such a frustrating cycle to try to break out of.
Yeah. My goal right now is to try to figure out like where I can be the most effective. And when I look at something like the shelter issue, I mean, I brought forward some legislation right before the election based on a meeting I was at with some advocates that were saying, you know, we really want to be able to use this facility that's locked but filled with beds already to be able to address people who have nowhere to stay over the winter. And I brought that forward. It was very disappointingly, resoundingly defeated, but then almost the same proposal was brought forward a couple weeks after the election and passed. And, you know, hopefully that would have happened anyway, but I can think that, you know, the activism that was sparked by that is part of why it passed that second time. I think that is something that I look at as, okay, the electoral version didn't work that time, but the pressure from the activists ultimately did. And so am I more effective as somebody that's writing op-eds and rallying people at the city hall, or am I more effective sitting inside of it? Obviously, I'm looking at a variety of other things, like, would I want to run for state rep or something else? That was something that I really didn't want to do because it is so much more partisan, and I love local politics because it is nonpartisan. It is really about roads and sidewalks. It is really about things that affect people every day. But I do obviously really care about some of these issues that can only be touched by state or national politics. But then thinking about that has me go, oh no, not another campaign. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, or if it is, you know, writing and being active. So I'm not really sure. I think it'll depend on what appears in the next couple of years. But yeah, I'm trying to hold myself to like at least 6 months without saying yes to anything new, which is already proved pretty difficult because people are like, oh, you have all this extra time. And I'm like, no, I really don't. Like I've got this full-time job. I have a dog. The holidays are coming up. I still feel just as busy as I did during the campaign. So I don't really feel like there's been too much of a break yet. Hopefully that'll start to come in the beginning part of next year as things die down a bit, but we'll see.
This is going to sound like a real softball question, but I don't, the answer might be not what you think it is. Are you glad that you did this? Are you glad that you ran for mayor?
Yeah, absolutely. From the beginning when I was trying to decide whether or not to do it, I just knew that if this incumbent mayor ran again and nobody challenged him, I would be very depressed about the state of my city. Just knowing that for years I have heard somebody's got to run against this bully. Like we've got to have another option. So, my stance from the beginning was, even if I don't win, there's got to be another option on the ticket. And, the further I went along, the more I thought pretty confidently that I could beat him. And again, like that, I think that third candidate popping up ended up hurting me more than it hurt him. But again, like holding on to my seat, like I had to consider that too. Like, what if I lose and now I'm not on city council anymore either? It really didn't feel like I could do much under that mayor with my council seat, because I ended up being 1 of 9, or in some cases 2 or 3 of 9. And that mayor had a really tight hold of the agenda of the councilors, even though the charter's not set up to be that way. That's just how it functions right now. So I just knew that there wasn't a whole lot more I could do with my council seat. So it was either you got to change the culture by changing the leadership at the top, or I have to find another way. Like, this local government is not going to be changed incrementally underneath. Like, we need fully new leadership in City Hall. And if it's not going to happen electorally this time, like maybe we can continue to shift it in the business world, in the art world, in the activism world, and continue to improve Somersworth that way.
So here, we dug a little deeper on the limits of our current system, and I personally learned some interesting things about how political parties operate at the local level that feels worth spending some time on.
It was really a game changer to have a institution helping me. As a grassroots candidate who was challenging an incumbent, certainly the Democratic Party was not going to help. This was not technically a primary, but because I was a Democrat running in a campaign where another Democrat was also running, they sort of treated it like a primary, which is, oh, we're not really going to help anyone. Of course, what that actually means is that the establishment person with all of their connections and friends comes out with all the endorsements of the, congressional delegation and a lot of money. And it did end up making a difference. And so, I needed some of the infrastructure, and that ultimately came from the Working Families Party and Rights and Democracy, who did endorse me. And they had, the lists I needed to knock on doors, and they had the infrastructure so that we could text everyone in Somersworth a week before the election. There were things like that even in a community of 12,000 people, I needed. So I needed some support. And I'm so grateful that there are institutions like the Working Families Party, like, whatever that group is that was helping AOC and her cohorts challenge incumbents. As somebody who has worked on Democratic campaigns before and used to have a pretty negative view of people that challenged incumbents, like, don't you see what you're doing? Like you're helping a potential Republican win. Obviously that's not always the case. And it is important that people challenge the status quo. And so, yeah, I think turning to organizations that are willing to be courageous and support people who are running values-based campaigns and not just fall in line with whoever the party establishment person is certainly a different way going forward that I will be organizing and supporting people. I think, all bets are off, as we were saying, that we don't have to listen to the common wisdom that we'll just wait for all the people who really know what they're doing tell us which two candidates we have to vote between. So yeah, it was fun being an anti-establishment disruptor, and I'm going to keep supporting other people who do that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that with the utility of those organizations, but that definitely really speaks to the value of supporting and creating and sustaining organizations like that. I think that, there's so much frustration right now with like Democrats in national politics, and people. There is this sort of growing chorus of people saying, like, no, you can't just go vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's not it. That's not the answer. It's clearly not the answer. We've been voting the whole time, right?
Yep.
And so I think that that kind of so people, I think there's a lot of hunger right now. Like, all right, so what is it then? What can I do? I can go protest, but like beyond that, on the days where I'm not protesting, people say, don't get upset, organize, right? How do I organize? Well, there you go. Like, there's one. Like, and it is really, I think it'll be increasingly time to start challenging incumbents and dismantling the current systems and not letting, this is the way we've always done it, be a good enough answer,
Yeah. I mean, I have been so disappointed just seeing, obviously outside of my own race, which, let's talk about my race first. The view that the Democratic Party in New Hampshire takes is a choice to, in any contested primary or contested race where two Democrats are running against each other in a municipal nonpartisan election, they choose to not help anyone. They could choose to help everyone equally. And Democratic parties in some states do that. If there are two Democrats running, they'll offer the use of their lists and technology to both equally. That's another way to treat it equally and to stay out of it. And by choosing to offer zero help instead of equal help, I think the Democratic Party in New Hampshire really loses out, because the Republicans in New Hampshire, they're out here voting for and helping anyone with an R next to their name. They're not worried about all of the things that it seems like our state party is sometimes worried about. And I've reached the point where, you know, there was something that happened earlier. I think it was after, I'm not actually fully sure if it was after my election, but I didn't find out about it until after my election, where a member of the Democratic House tweeted support of Palestine in a way that a few people misinterpreted as being anti-Semitic. And immediately the Democratic minority leader put out a press release calling for her to be pulled off of her committees, even though, you know, all of this discussion had happened. She'd issued an apology for, you know, it appearing anyway. And instead of being courageous as a party and saying, we can talk about how being anti-Zionist is not being anti-Semitic, we can talk about Palestinians having human rights just like everyone else, without, you know, tiptoeing around and kowtowing to what the Republicans are accusing us of. You know, I had a real moment of like, do I just leave the Democratic Party? Like, is that just like my reaction to everything? And of course I didn't want to do that because, you know, obviously I'm a Democrat more than I'm a Republican. Obviously I believe in the values that are part of the platform, but it is so disappointing to see leadership that is scared to have bold conversations and is worried about, instead of finding the best candidate, they're running an incumbent protection program. You know, like the best and strongest thing for the Democratic Party to do is to help all Democrats equally so that the strongest and best candidates come forward, so that when we are going up against the Republicans, we have the best candidates and the most compelling candidates and the boldest candidates that are going to win, and not just the same candidate. So that is a point of frustration that I'm still working through. Like, all right, how to help? Like, I definitely, you know, am not out there like saying burn it all down to the point where I'm attacking, you know, Democratic incumbents who are in one-on-one races with Republicans. But there has to be a way that we can go about this smarter and have primaries be something that are healthy for the party. And yeah, those are things I'm thinking about.
It's a little mechanical fix that you identified right there. Like, look at your race, right? If the Democrats if they supported both candidates, then Ken Hilton doesn't have nearly as much of an ability to gain a foothold over you. You know, if that were the case. And that way, two Democrats are stronger in a three-way election. And versions of that pattern could play out across all kinds of different versions of campaigns, like where supporting both Democrats equally would help. And that's just a little thing. You just reach into the machine and you turn a screw a little bit. And there's a million of those. And lots of people that have their own experiences with party politics know where at least one of those screws is. And so it's really, we don't have to destroy everything. We have to find all of those pressure points, you know, and to some people that does look like dismantling, you know, it feels like dismantling to them, but it's not. What do you think then? What do you think is the main lesson so far? With the caveat that things may change and we might be able to look back on this campaign with the benefit of hindsight and say, actually, the most important thing that happened was this. But for now, what do you think is what was your biggest lesson from this campaign?
I don't know. My biggest lesson. I think it's interesting because this is my first personal campaign loss. I've definitely been a part of campaigns where we have lost the candidate that we were all working on behalf of. But as a candidate, this was my first loss. I did not feel depressed and filled with grief and stuff like I had working for campaigns. And I think it's because of my focus, especially in the last couple of months, on I just want to run a campaign I'm proud of. I know why I'm running. As I mentioned earlier, like I knew going into this is my only option personally. It's got to change and I have to try even if I don't win. And I think that really made it so that, you know, it wasn't a devastating loss. It was a loss. And I'm still wicked proud. I'm wicked proud of the campaign I ran. You none of the big fears that came up happened. I didn't get my legs broken. Like, nobody personally threatened me in any meaningful way. There weren't these big scary moments that happened. It sort of undermined, like, hey, this is America. This is a democracy. Anyone can run. I wish more people did. And I did. And I did it in a way that was fun and in a way that I was proud of. There were times where I said or did things where I was like, is this policy too out there? And then I would just release it and people would just be like, okay, yeah, that's a part of a platform. Cool. Let's talk about that. So nothing was as shocking as it felt like. Certainly there were moments where I felt like, oh, this is bold. And then I would put something out there and it would just be like, oh yeah, cool. So yeah, I guess it wasn't as scary as I would have thought. And I feel like that was also a takeaway at the end of our last conversation. But yeah, it holds true. I'm really glad that I did it. And yeah, do what you believe in. I think a phrase that really stood out to me immediately after the election results is what Hillary Clinton said in her concession speech, which is fighting for what you believe in is always worth it. Fighting for what's right is always worth it. So yeah, it was worth it.
I want to thank Crystal for taking so much time during and after her campaign to sit down and talk with me. I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope that this episode helped you in some way, whether it just helped demystify local elections or maybe inspired you to challenge an incumbent official in your city, or maybe inspired you to stay the hell away from electoral politics and try a different way. I don't really know what the right path is for making real progress. I suspect that it's both, but whatever it is, the inside or the outside track, it's certainly not easy. But we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying everything, all the time.